Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Louisa, and welcome to First Glance Film Festival. We're so excited to have you. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having my movie in the festival and for talking to me. This is really great.
And we are going to be talking about your movie, which is called Learning to Write.
Yes.
And I got to watch this. I got to watch it this week, and it was beautiful. Louisa, you were the writer, the director, and the producer.
Yes, correct.
That's a lot of work. I love this movie because out of all the films that I saw, this one really got me thinking. Like, I really found it an invitation to reflect my own world, which I really loved. And I think a lot of that was to do with the theme that spoke to me, which was relationships, because you deal with a lot of relationships in this film. You deal with mother-daughter, 3 generations, and romantic relationships, relationship to the patriarch. Was this the main theme for you? Because it really spoke to me watching the movie. I'm curious to know from your perspective what the message was.
I love that. I love that you said that, because it definitely is a movie about connections and what happens when there's a stronger purpose that makes you leave all the connections and the relationships you have. So that is 100% something that I wanted to explore. And I love that that's what stood out to you, because that's really what I love to write about. If I could, I would just write about, people talking and having relationships and for hours. I love that.
Beautiful, because, it's something that everybody can relate to. Do you know what I mean? So the beautiful thing about this film was that I went away and it stayed in my peripheral, because I was like, okay, what's my relationship like with my mother and my friends? And it was just so beautiful.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It gave me goosebumps when you said that, because I like that you kept thinking about it, because that's really what we love, I think, about film, is like when, I want you to think about it. It is exactly that. It's an invitation to reflect. I don't want to spell everything out for people. That's never been my style.
And, and I should add, for the people that haven't yet seen the film, that it's not like, it's not sugar-coated in any way. It's a real invitation to see the good and the bad in relationships,
Yes.
Which is also very powerful. So thank you for that. So you directed, you wrote, and you produced. So yeah. I'm curious to know whether it was a conscious decision for you not to act in it. Do you act?
No, that's funny. I do not act. I've tried to do a little bit of acting, and I could tell my teacher was like supportive, but yeah, I was drawn to it more as an exercise in writing and directing. I believe it's one of the bravest things people can do is to act. And it's funny, but people ask me that a lot if I do act, because I think it's like I put myself so much in my scripts and in my films. So it's a fine line between persona and character and all that. But so that's why I admire directors that direct themselves so much, because I think that requires a skill in itself that's beyond just directing actors.
It's definitely a skill, definitely a different skill. But even writing is also very vulnerable. I feel it's equally as vulnerable. Because you're really getting to see your inner world. So, in a very different way, it's just as vulnerable, even more so perhaps than from an actor's perspective. So
I agree. And I think that's something that as I become more deeper in my writing journey, it's something that I'm like allowing myself to be a little more vulnerable on the page, and maybe not be, because I feel like this film is not autobiographical, but it's very personal. It's personal themes to me. I'm a mother. I have a strong relationship with my mother. I recently moved to California. Like, there are things that I stole from my life, but that's not my story, Yeah. But still, you think about things in terms of like, well, if I'm writing about my mother, let's say, right? Yeah. Which is a big part of this film. I'm like, this is not my mother. This is a mother in a film, but it's still very vulnerable, and it's still, and when you read people's scripts as well, I always think about that when I'm when I'm consuming other people's work, because I'm like, I know that it requires a lot to put yourself on the page.
For sure. But I'm a firm believer that that's the difference between a sort of successful project and not, is when people are able to just be like, here I am. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling. And I really felt that your film did this. So yay. Just speaking about acting, actually, the chemistry between Nina and Isaac was so lovely. And for those people that haven't seen the film, that's the leading lady and her love interest. It was such a beautiful connection. And there were some wonderful moments, like them inside the deli and then them eating their lunch on the stairs. It was really magical. Can you tell us a little bit about those characters?
Oh, for sure. From the beginning, I had a very clear sense of the couple. In the backstory, like there is a feature version that I am trying to develop, and the backstory is that Isaac is Nigerian and Nina is Brazilian. And the reason I did that is because there's a lot of cultural similarities between the two cultures that I've realized over time, and how the societies are structured, and, you know, how just in general, like I feel like the immigrants of those two countries have a lot of connections. And I, as an immigrant myself living in the United States with very close Nigerian American friends, like that's the reason why I developed them those ways. And as far as the chemistry goes, it's funny you say that, because the first time they met, like we all were like, oh my gosh, these two just, like, as actors, I'm not saying like they were, but you can
absolutely.
That there was just this connection, and they were like vibing off each other, and like already in this like flirtatious energy, and like the rehearsals, like it was just magical. I could not be happier with how they interacted with each other.
So did you do a chemistry read beforehand?
Not, isn't that funny? I did not, because the actress that plays Nina is Leilani Cohen, and she's Brazilian, and she is, I've known her forever, and I've always thought that she was such that character. She embodied that character so well. And I had other people read for her, but I kept going back to her. And then I had a casting director do everyone else, basically, like all the three other roles, but three very important roles.
Yeah.
So I went through that whole of like sitting through tons and tons and tons of auditions, and David, who plays Isaac, just popped. And he's a star in Ascension. You can, you know, he's shown up on Modern Love on Amazon. I screamed when I saw him. So it was almost like a lucky guess, because with these small indies, there's very little you can do with, you know, more, you know. So I had my casting, and that was it, one day of auditions, and I just got extremely lucky with my actors.
It's funny what you said about Nina embodying the character. What's the actress's name again?
Leilani Cohen.
Leilani. So it was funny because I felt that as well watching it, and I had to go back and double check whether she wrote it, because it just felt it. She told the story so well, and she really inhabited the role that I was like, oh, I bet she's the writer too, but she wasn't, and that's a testament to her. So
love it.
Yeah,
I'm happy to hear that. If she's here listening.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to talk about was the music.
I love that you're asking about that.
You know what? In this festival this year, there's so much amazing music that's really caught my attention. And this film, it did exactly that. At the end, the end music, the title music is, I mean, it's beautiful. It's inspiring. It made me want to go out and buy it. And I love the fact that you sort of wove it into the movie, because you play it in the deli in the background.
You noticed, yes.
Yes, I did. I want to know, can you speak a little bit on the importance of music in filmmaking?
I'm so happy. I'm like, I just, everyone that I talk to, I just can't wait to talk about the music. So I play music. Music is a huge part of my life. And I think it's such an important part of filmmaking, right? And it's like when the perfect score hits the perfect film, there's just something magical about that combination. I love musicals. I just love that combination, you know, of like the drama and the music. So for me, it's like when a good score doesn't fill in any gap from the story, it just adds an extra layer to that. Because sometimes you feel that too. You're like, okay, the score is telling me to feel X, Y, and Z, even though the story is not quite doing that just yet.
It's a fine line, isn't it?
They're both doing it together. It's magical. So I've always played music, and I have a very strong connection to music, and I have a very dear friend from Brazil. So I did a little bit of this movie. I did a little bit of the post in Brazil. I did my music from Brazil. The animation was a Brazilian animator. And
the animation was amazing. The whole end sequence is like,
ah, thank you. So yeah, so I tapped into my Brazilian network there and my very talented folks down there. And one of them is Hugot, who is a Brazilian producer. A music producer. And I've always wanted him to score my film, basically. Like I always told him, and he had never done this before. He had scored fashion shows. That was actually how he started in music, was DJing for fashion shows, eventually writing the music briefed. And then I thought he would just be such a perfect guy to do that, you know? Yeah. And he was just wonderful. And he just embraced the challenge. And when he saw the rough cut, when he read the script, he's like, this film needs a song. It needs a song, not just a score. It needs a song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I get a song. And he hired his own, you know, and Beyond too is another producer who he ended up working on and making that song specifically. So I could not be happier with that. And I just love that you gave it a shout out, because it is a huge part of the filmmaking for me. And then with the deli, it was actually a last minute thing, because we had just this like song there playing, and no one ever thought to think like, oh, maybe this is a song we need. Like we were just so wrapped up in everything else. And then the sound guy was like, oh yeah, just, you know, that song's temporary. Just remember to change it. I'm like, oh my gosh, no, use this song then.
It was so clever. I was like, oh, because I watched the film twice. So the first time, obviously, I wouldn't have known.
No, nice.
I watched the second time because the first time the titles had made such an impact on me. It was so easy to hear it the second time. I was like, it's that
song. With you, that song, right? Even now, just thinking about it, like, I love you.
Yeah, it stays with you. It was magic, and it was so fitting for the film as well.
Yeah, I think it picked up that, you know, melancholy, hopeful, joyful place where I kind of want, you know.
And it was also sort of like the main character, if she was able to be a piece of music, I feel like she would be that she would embody that music.
I love that.
Okay, and I'm going to wrap it up by asking you one last question. And I really would love to know what your highlight was throughout the process, whether, you know, from beginning to end, whether, you know, it's in the beginning writing process or production, post-production. Yeah. What was your personal highlight?
Okay. So I've been a writer for longer than I've been anything else, like a director and producer. So the writing was very fun, but it felt a very familiar process. Although it was the first time I was writing, knowing that I would get to like direct and break it down visually, which was super exciting. But set as a director was just a magical thing for me. Yeah. It was the first time I directed. I had no idea how I was going to be once there was a group of people around me listening to me for everything. Yeah. And I had the most magical crew. It was, I would say, 98% women. You know, it was like incredible. So many women, like non-binary. It was just a great vibe on the set. And I'm not a micromanaging director, no offense to them, because some people just have the very big vision and everything needs to be that vision. And I think it's just one way to do it. I was very much like, I want to get a really good performance out of my actors, and everything else I'm going to really lean on my, you know, my production head. So my DP had a really big, you know, Shannon Madden, wonderful, another big star ascending. You know, I really listened to her, and like, So that whole exchange for me was so magical. I learned so much while I get to do this beautiful experience for me. And I got a film out of it. So yeah, I feel like it was 3 days on set, on location in Brooklyn. It was really incredible. We actually closed down a deli, which, note to self, not to do anymore, because those New Yorkers need their coffee and they need their and when you close a 24-hour deli, people get really upset.
Fuck your film. I want a bagel.
Exactly.
Oh, brilliant. Well, Louisa, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
It was wonderful. I loved it. Great experience.
Congratulations again on your magnificent film. And we look forward to welcoming you back to First Glance another year with another project.
So hopefully next year or in 2 years, we'll see.
Absolutely. And just before we go, I want to say a big shout out to It's a Short, who have made these interviews possible. So
thank you.
Bye, Louisa. Take care.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.